Hello, welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to be creating a flyer design for a fast food brand, a brand that produces snacks and all that. So let's get started. I'm going to hold Alt and increase this from every angle to fit into my workspace. And once it fits into my workspace, I'll click on enter. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do is delete this background that was here initially. Either I click on it and hit the delete key on my keyboard, or I drag it and drop it over this bin right here, and it gets deleted. So once that is done, I'll make a copy, Ctrl J. Once I make a copy, I'll go to image, then I'll go to adjustments, brightness and contrast. I'll increase the contrast and reduce the brightness a bit, and then I'll click on OK. Then with that same layer selected, with this same background copy selected, I'll click on the layer mask. Then I'll get my brush tool using the shortcut on my keyboard B, or I'll manually click here to get the brush tool. Okay, I'll turn off my caps lock so I can see the brush size. Then I'll hold Alt and right click to increase it. I'll hold Alt and right click. Hold Alt, right click and drag to the right to increase it. Or you can go to this panel here and manually set the size of your brush. So once this is done, I'll open this panel and make sure hardness is set to 0, opacity is set to 100, and this is set to black because I want to hide some parts of this dark I created. I'll reduce the opacity to about 70 actually. Now I'll increase the size a bit, and then I'll just paint this part off a bit, just like this. So let's see the before and after. So what I was able to achieve was I was able to darken this area. I made this area appear darker than this area. So this is what I mean. Okay, so we can forge ahead. So the next thing I'll do is I'll go back to my resource folder and click on this theme folder here. As you can see, it might look like you might not be able to see it, but once you click and drag, you'll be able to see it. So I'll drag it and drop it into my workspace. Then I'll increase the size like this, and I'll just place it somewhere here. Then I'll click on OK. So let's leave it at this position for now. You might not understand what I'm doing, but as I progress with the design, you would understand. So the next thing I'll do is to go back to my resource folder again and click on this. First of all, I'll drag it and drop into my workspace. Then I'll increase the size, something like this, and I'll just place it somewhere here. I'll reduce the size a bit. Perfect. Then I'll click on enter. Now I want this particular item I added to make to look like it has a reflection, so that it looks like the floor is shiny, so it's reflecting. So what I'll do is to click on Ctrl J to make a copy. I've made a copy now, so I'll click on Ctrl T, transform. Then I'll right click and click on flip vertical. So it has flipped it vertically. Then I'll hold shift and drag it down, just like this, and I'll place it somewhere here. Then I'll click on enter. So once that is placed, with this same particular layer selected, I'll mask it. I'll get my brush tool and just paint off some parts like this. Good. Alright, so with that done, next thing I'll do is just to reduce the opacity of this. I'll name this cake stack reflection, an abbreviation rather. Then I'll reduce the opacity really well. I just need a little bit of this detail. Alright, so I'll click on this cake stack here. I'll go to filter and I'll click on camera raw filter. So we'll just wait for the next panel to open up. Alright, I'll zoom in so I can see the effects of what I'm applying on it. The first thing I'll do is to click on this basic and set your exposure to about 0.50. I'll increase the contrast to about 8. I'll go to texture, scroll down to texture, and I'll increase it to about 60 or thereabouts. Then the clarity, I'll also increase it to about 30 or 20 something. Yeah. Then finally I'll scroll down, I'll click on detail and sharpen this. I'll increase it to about 30. And then I'll click on OK. So as you can see, there's more difference now. It's even looking more welcoming. Now. This reflection right here, I'll click on it and move it just somewhere here. Yes. I'll delete this layer mask and make some little adjustments. I'll create a new one, then get my brush tool and then paint off these areas like this. Alright, then set the opacity to, let's try 35. Yeah, let's leave it at 35. So I'll group. Okay, I'll not do any grouping yet. I'll go back to my resource folder and get this. I'll drag it and drop it into my workspace. Then I'll increase the size like so, and I'll just place it somewhere here. Yeah, I'll adjust the size a bit. Alright, so as you can see, there's something underneath it and I don't want it. So what I'll do is to create a layer mask. Get my brush tool, increase the hardness to 100. I'll reduce my brush size so I can target this area I want. Make sure this is set to 100. Then I'll just take this part off like this. Sorry, let me zoom in so I can do this more accurately. Alright, so I'll erase this off. Yeah. Alright, so with that done, what I'll do next is to click on Ctrl J to make a copy. Then I'll click on Ctrl T and I'll right click and flip it vertically again because I also want to make a reflection of it. And I'll just place it somewhere here like this. And I'll click on enter. With this I'll name this cake parfait reflection so I know which layer I'm really working on. Then I'll click on its layer mask that we already created, get my brush tool, turn off caps lock, increase my brush size, go to my brush settings and reduce the hardness to 0, opacity to about 70. Then we'll just fade off these areas like this. We'll fade it off. Okay, now we'll place it under the cake parfait. The reflection should be under the cake parfait. Then I'll reduce the opacity to about 35, just like I did for the other one. Now I'll also drag the reflection of this cake stack and place it under the cake stack itself. Okay, now what I'll do is I want to apply this. The camera raw filter I applied on this cake stack, I also want to apply it here. So what I'll just do is I can see the camera raw filter here that I applied on it. I'll move my arrow key here. I'll hold Alt. Then I'll hold my left mouse key or trackpad. Then I'll drag the smart filter or camera raw filter which I'm looking at and just move it to the cake parfait around here. Then release your key. And watch the same camera raw filter you applied on the cake stack will apply on the cake parfait. Simple as that. Alright, so I'll head back to my resource folder again, and this time I'm going to add this cake slice here. I'll drag it and drop into here, and I'll just place it somewhere here. somewhere here. Then I'll click on enter. Okay, so when I downloaded this particular image, it already had a reflection, so I will not add any reflection to this one. The only thing I'll do is to add the same camera raw filter I applied on it. So I'll go back to this camera raw filter and do the same thing. Hold Alt, left click, drag, and drop it just right above this cake slice which we added right now, and we'll wait for the filter to apply. Perfect. So once that happens, the reflection of this cake parfait looks a little off, so I'll click on the cake parfait reflection, get my brush tool, and still fade it off a bit. Yes, Ctrl Z, just a bit. Okay, finally we'll go back to our resource folder and get this donut right here. We'll drag it and drop it into our workspace, and we'll increase the size and place it somewhere here, and we'll click on enter. Now I'll click on this cake slice here. I'll reduce the size. Yes, and okay, this is okay. Alright, going back to the donut we just added, I'll click on Ctrl J to make a copy, and once I make a copy, I'll name the copy donut reflection. I'll drag it and place under the donut layer itself. Then I'll click on Ctrl T to transform. I'll right click and click on flip vertical. Then I'll hold Shift and drag it down till it matches like this. Okay, let's try flipping it a bit. Yeah, we'll just leave it this way. Alright, so I'll create a layer mask for it. I'll get my brush tool. I'll turn off my caps lock so I can see my brush size. Opacity 70. Make sure this is still, the hardness is still set to 0. Then I'll just take away some parts of it like this. Once we do that, what I'll do next is to reduce the opacity to about 30. Alright, so I want to apply camera raw filter on this as well. So I'll do the same trick. I'll go to the camera raw filter of the cake stack. I'll hold Alt, left click, then I'll drag this and just drop it above the donut layer and wait for the same effect to apply to it. Okay, so it has gotten the same effect. Now I want to increase the size of the cake stack. I'll click on the cake stack, I'll hold Shift and also click on its reflection which we created. Then I'll increase them all together. I want it to appear as the biggest, as the largest snack in this design. Alright, and I'll click on enter and just wait for things to load up. So now this was the reason I placed this theme behind this, so it looks like this theme is emanating from these items here. So what I'll do is to click on this brown background here and this other one. I'll group them together, Ctrl G, and I'll name it background. Then I'll click on this theme. I'll scroll up to the donuts. I'll right click again. I'll click again and group them together. Then I'll just name this snacks. Alright, so with that done, the next thing I'm going to do, I'll click on this snacks layer here. Then I'll click on Ctrl, Alt, Shift and E to create a single merged layer. Ctrl, Alt, Shift and E. Then I'll just name this camera raw. I'll right click and convert it to smart objects. I'll open up this snacks layer and I'm going to apply this same camera raw filter I applied on this donut on this one, on this camera we created now. So I'll hold Alt and drag this filter and just drop it over this we created. Okay, this is zoom better. Now what we are going to do is to create a layer mask for this. Get our brush tool. with the same settings we used previously. Now I don't want this camera raw filter to apply in all these other parts of this design, so what I'll do is I'll just take it away from this end lightly with my brush tool, like this. So you notice what I did now? I just removed it from the areas I don't need it applied in. So let's see the before and after. Yeah, this is making better sense. So I'll open the snacks folder and drop this effect into it. Then I'll close it up. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do, I already created the contact address and the text which we'll place onto this design. I place them here separately. So I'll start with this contact bar. So I have it in a folder. I'll just drag it and drop into my workspace. It is misplaced here, so I'll just align it automatically here, or you can click on Ctrl T to manually move it. So once it's placed here, I'll move it down a bit. Yeah, and this is perfect here. So I'll click on Ctrl H. I'll go to, if you can't see this, if you can't get this in your design, just in your workspace, just click on Ctrl R. It will either hide it or reveal it. This is the ruler or grid tool. So I'll just drag one and place it here, so it will match with the end of this contact bar. I'll get another one and place it at this end as well. Good. Then I'll go to my resource folder and get my logo, and I'll just place the logo somewhere here. I'll increase the size a bit so that it's readable, and I'll place it here and click on enter. Then I'll go to this ruler tool here and drag another one and place it here. Alright, so with the logo added and the snacks added, the other things left are the texts. So I'll go back to this space I created and get in my freshly baked, and I'll just drop it in here. I'll click on Ctrl T to move it, and I'll align it perfectly with the grids I've created and click on enter. Alright, so in case you notice any effects I added on this text, I did this before I started shooting this video to reduce the time this video would take, so you can explore the effects you can apply to your texts to make it more interesting. Finally, we'll go back to this folder, to this, and get this final text, and I'll just place it here. I'll click on Ctrl H to reveal my grid or rulers. Then I'll click on Ctrl T to move this, and I'll just place it here perfectly. Then I'll click on enter, and I'll click on Ctrl H to hide the grids or rulers. Alright, so we are almost done with this design. We'll just do one final thing. With this layer selected, I'll click on Ctrl, Alt, Shift and E again to create a new merged layer, and I'll name this Camera Raw. Alright, so before I'll turn that off for now, then I'll go to this plus icon to create a new empty layer, and I'll name this Noise. Alright, so I'll convert this to smart objects and apply finer effects for this design to look perfect. So that is going to be it for this design. Thank you for sticking along. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next video.